Hi, it's Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to try a new product. A guy named Dan at a company called Steel Camel here in Florida contacted me, and he's got something that might solve one of our big problems in the cruising and boating world. Water getting into your fuel, plugging up your carburetor, all that. Well, I'm going to go through his products. I'm going to see if they work. We're going to do a little lab test here. This video is going to take me like 2 weeks to film, but it's all going to be in one video. See you in a bit. If you've watched through my videos, I have 2 different videos on how to tear down the carburetor of an outboard motor, one for 4-stroke, one for 2-stroke. What you're doing there is cleaning the gunge that collects in there, that restricts the fuel flow, that keeps the engine from running right. It's an important skill that all us boaters need to know because there's nobody out there where you can take it in for service. You got to do it yourself or find a buddy who can do it. You should be that buddy. Well, why the gunge gets in there, in my opinion, I haven't done the real chemistry of it, but since it didn't happen before and it is happening in the modern world, I think it's the ethanol they're putting into the gasoline. The ethanol is absorbing moisture out of the air or, water that got in during the shipping process. And alcohol holds onto water real tight. Gasoline itself lets it settle out and separate and all that, and you would see it. But with alcohol, it holds on real tight. That water and fuel mixture in your carburetor oxidizes and turns into like a varnish. I know you've all smelled that before, and bad things happen. So you have to clean out your carburetor. I had this problem forever, since I've been cruising, basically since I left Seattle way back then. And I solved it by tearing the carburetor down, like every 6 months. It was time for a new outboard and I wanted a bigger one. And when I looked around at what's available in that size range, I saw that there were fuel-injected outboards available. Fuel-injected motors that didn't require a battery. So it was a big decision because I know I can clean out a carburetor. I don't know if I can fix a fuel-injected motor, just don't have experience with them. I don't know what would fail, So when it does fail, will I have the right parts? Do I have the knowledge? Do I have the test equipment? But I decided to take a shot at it, mostly because I've been driving a Porsche from the 80s and the fuel system is never screwed up. It just works. And I can't say that about other cars I've owned before that had carburetors. So I went for it, and I've been very, very happy with it. You can look at other videos to see what I chose and everything, particularly the dinghy video series, the one I did myself on my aluminum dinghy. So why it's better is in that whole fuel system of the injected vehicle, there's no vents. So air can't get in to expose the fuel to oxygen. And that seems to keep all of these fuel problems from even happening. But most of us still have carbureted systems, and water can do other problems too, can cause corrosion. So if someone can come up with a really good way of getting the water out of our fuel, even out of the alcohol in our fuel, well, that's something we should be looking into. There's this company called Steel Camel, and a guy that's running that contacted me and asked me if I would look into his product. At first, I just thought, oh, another lotion and potion and whatever. There's a million products on the auto parts shelf, for add this to your fuel and magic will happen. So I went at it like, I don't know. And I thought about it. I talked to him on the phone. I said, okay, send me some toys. Well, he sent me some toys. I got some samples here, and we're going to go through a process. I've got some fuel, and we're going to find out if it actually works. So here's what they sent, and then we'll go into the study. Okay, he's got 2 basic products. One is a spin-on filter that you could run your fuel. Oh, by the way, this is supposed to work for gasoline or diesel, and a lot of us get water in our diesel. That has a whole different set of problems. Both of these are valid products if they work. So got these spin-on type filters. He didn't send me the filter, but he did send me what's inside the filter, you know, the actual filter material. And it's your basic filter with a little screen over it and then a dusting of the magic compound. We'll get to it in a moment. I think this filter would be really nice if you were trying to polish your fuel, you know, move it from one tank to another through his filter. I personally wouldn't use this filter in my engine system for one reason. It's too good. Too good. It sounds weird, but apparently when this filter membrane fills up, it swells, absorbs a huge amount of water, and then chokes itself right off, so you get no fuel. Well, that's fine in a truck. You pull over the side of the road, get a tow truck, you know, change the filter, no big deal. But in airplanes and boats, you need to rely on the engine. Nothing can make that engine die. I'd rather run water for the engine than have the engine fail when I'm near a bunch of rocks on a lee shore. So that's one thing. The other thing they have, and he didn't send me one, I thought he was going to, he calls it a tiger tail. And it's a sock. It's available in different diameters. And it's full of this powder and whatever else, I don't know, but a lot of that powder, an active amount. And you just dip it down into the tank on a string and it does its magic, you know, kind of with all the fuel around it. And if it works, one of those dipped into your gas tank for your dinghy should really be all you need. When you see it swell up, you take it out. We're going to do a test series now just based on gasoline. I'm going to take it as read that it can pull the water out of diesel. Honestly, I think it's easier to pull the water out of diesel because there's no alcohol in the diesel, and the alcohol is what causes fits. So let's start with what the test will be. Get that going. We'll play with some other things, and then a week or so later, you know, because this would have all the time in the world to do its job in a boat environment, we'll get back to it. So I have obtained 2 little jars of gasoline. This one is without alcohol, according to the pump anyway. And this one is your regular 10% alcohol maximum that you'd put into your car. I'm really hoping that there's alcohol in this. I did go with high test because I figure alcohol raises octane, so they might put as much as possible into that. Your fuel is mixed based on what products are cheaper that month. They don't promise you anything really, but we're going to assume there's alcohol in this. So what we're going to do, I've already weighed them. We're going to add a known amount of water to each of them. I'm going to shake them up. If all goes well, the one without alcohol, the water should settle to the bottom and we should see it down there. The one with alcohol, there should be noticeably less water in the bottom because a lot of it will be held in the alcohol. Then we're going to suspend some of these little pads, kind of like a small version of their tiger tail, in the fluid. I'm going to try not to let them touch the bottom. Then I'm going to leave them set for a long time. And at the end of whenever, we're going to weigh them and we're going to see if they did a good job. I'm going to judge it based on how much fatter these got, how much heavier they got. And I'm going to judge it based on, well, when I shake this up, if it has water in it, I expect it to go cloudy. And if I shake it up afterwards and it doesn't go cloudy, well, that's an indication, right? Let's get at it. Not looking forward to opening these because they're going to smell. All right, we're going to start by putting in, and I think a good amount is 3 milliliters of water in each of these. That will weigh 3 grams, so their weight should come up by 3 grams. We'll verify that. Then I'm going to put the pads in. I think I'm going to get the pads wet with gasoline, pull them out, weigh the pad, and then put it right back in. Because when I take it out later, it'll still be wet with gasoline, but it also should have accumulated a bunch of water. And then we'll let the test do its thing. So let's screw up some gasoline. Ooh. Yeah, I hate doing this inside my house. Okay, they have 3 grams of water in them. It's pooling to the bottom of this one. I'm not going to shake it yet. And it's pooling to the bottom of this one. Not a lot, but I can see it. Let's see. I think I'm going to put the pads in and weigh them, then shake it up so I'm measuring the pads with more pure fuel, no water. Because they're going to absorb something just like a sponge. Okay. It does look like a little version of that tiger tail they talk about. That's good. I can suspend it this way. Just out of curiosity, this weighs 3 grams dry. Wet with gasoline. Five grams. I'm going to do my shaking up now. Also 5 grams. So, if after this test, anything over 5 grams that these pads weigh, that's water they've absorbed. Whoa. Look how milky that one got. I hope you can see it. This is the one with alcohol. And this one without alcohol still has all the water at the bottom. So I think we've started out with proof that the pump gas with alcohol absorbs water. Do we all agree? All right. I'm kind of expecting this to actually work better in the alcohol fuel because it's suspended up where the pad is. And this one, there'll be a little bit of water in the fluid. I'm going to shake it every few, I don't know, occasionally. Not too much because it leaks. And see what happens. Okay, let's play. They gave me some of this powder, and I think they want me to just be amazed at how much it can absorb. So let's be amazed. Set my scale here for ounces. Let me tear this out. Put 4 or 5 ounces in the container. Really? .16 ounces of water. And they suggest half of this powder. Now, I asked him how the powder worked. And first he just said, well, it's not like that stuff in the diapers that just absorbs because you can squeeze it out again. And then he went on to some salesman blah, blah, blah about hydrogen and oxygen and stuff. So I pressed him on the phone and he finally was honest. He said, I'll find out for you. So maybe by the end of the video, I'll have the real answer. I'm not the chemist. I didn't invent this. I'm selling it. And all I know is what he told me and what I've been telling everybody. Nobody's ever asked before. But the fact that it's supposed to separate the water into hydrogen and oxygen, obviously not gas, because, well, that would require a huge amount of energy, and we'd have gas. It probably means that there's a chemical bond with the water, so it's becoming a hydrate of some kind. Anyway, here we go. More or less, should have weighed it, more or less half of the magic powder. And then we're supposed to just set this aside. Well, let's give it a little mix, because I'm done with this. And prepare to be amazed. I should have done that first. Oh, wow. I can already see it. Oh, look at this. Well, whatever it does it fast. It does it effectively. That water is obviously not going to move through anything. I'm going to give it a few more minutes, and then I'm going to take it out and play with it some more. I let 10 minutes go by. Let's take a look. Get a nice dry paper towel. And what happened? Well, it feels cold. It feels wet to my finger, but very little water is transferring to my finger. Paper towel is staying dry, so it absorbs water better than paper. A lot better. I'm even squeezing it. It's more of a chemical bond, like they say, than it is a just an absorption. And that was a surprisingly small amount of powder. That was about this much powder. I tried to pour half. It looks like I actually probably poured less than half. Take a quick peek at the samples because it's been 10 minutes. This is our no alcohol. Same thing. Puddle at the bottom, pretty clear. And this is our alcohol, cloudy, still a puddle at the bottom. Actually, it looks like the puddle has grown bigger. I think what might be happening is the alcohol is actually being pulled out of the gasoline because it prefers the water. Yeah, well, that's interesting because you need that alcohol. Sounds strange. Alcohol has about half the energy per volume that gasoline has. So why would we want alcohol? Well, we don't want alcohol, but we need a certain octane because the octane, which just means 8 carbons, doesn't burn as fast as heptane, 7 carbons. And real gasoline at 100 octane would be 100% octane, but that's expensive. So you kind of let a lot of different carbon numbers mix together because petroleum's a messy job. And you got a lot of heptane and probably whatever 6 is on down till you get to be an actual gas that won't stay in the fuel tank. And that stuff burns too fast. So you put in things to slow it down. Now we used to do that with the lead. What was that? Triethyl lead. And we all know that's not a good idea for health. So we don't do that anymore. And then we did MC whatever. And it turns out that was like deadly. So we stopped doing that. And I think for the most part, magic that I don't know about, if you know, please comment below. But alcohol is a big version of why we do that. Now, alcohol is pretty expensive, actually, but we've got someone, government paying for stuff that it brought the price down, and now they're using the alcohol to raise the octane. Let's talk about what you could do in the field if you got water in your gas, and it's gonna happen. You might buy gas that already has water in it, common, very common, because they don't change filters and stuff out there in like the Bahamas very much. Not until they have to, and they only really have to when someone realizes they just bought like a quart of water in their gallon of gas, and they complain about it, and then we go back and complain. Basically saying, we're not buying gas from you anymore, and then they clean their filters. US, it's a lot better, of course, but I have gotten bad diesel fuel in, where was it? San Diego? In fact, the only bad diesel fuel I've ever taken on the boat that was really a mess was San Diego. So let's say you got some gas and you can see there's water in it. Possibly it's because you mishandled it. I've done this. Either I left the cap off the fuel can, or I don't know. For some reason you got water in your gas. It's unimportant how. You want to get it out. Well, if you put it in something transparent, and I usually end up using a soda bottle because those 2-liter soda bottles are everywhere, and I just let it sit for like a day or two, hopefully with the boat not sloshing around, what we see here will happen. The water will form a layer on the bottom, and the two will separate from each other as well as they can. Then I just very slowly decant the good fuel off the top, leaving a little bit of fuel and the water in the bottom. And then I dispose of the water and the fuel. And you got to do what you got to do. And I burnt that kind of fuel many, many times through many, many motors, and I haven't really had a problem with it. So it's not the end of the world. Now, the exact same thing can happen with diesel fuel. It's probably more likely to happen with diesel fuel. You can use the same procedure, but usually a cruiser owns 3 to 6 gallons of gasoline, or maybe some more in jerry cans. But when you buy diesel, of course, you buy a lot more. So for diesel, you're going to want some system to clean it. Now, on Temptress, I've got lots of tanks all over the place. I like that in case I spring a leak or some fuel got bad or whatever. All the fuel coming onto my boat goes into one tank, only one. In fact, right now it's the only one that has a deck fill. When that tank is, full, I transfer the fuel through my fuel management manifold system I put together and through a Rycor filter and off to another tank. So I've already done some water separation and some filtering on any fuel that comes aboard the boat. So then I pour some more fuel in. I bring it all aboard with jerry cans. I just don't like to maneuver that big full keel boat in a tight marina that I don't know. And most of the time you end up getting your fuel at gas stations anyway when you're out there. So jerry cans are the way. That's what I do. Now, if this works like it's supposed to work, I might actually add one of this guy's filters to that polishing system. So I'll go through the Rycor first for mechanical separation, just letting the fuel flow fall to the bottom, the water fall to the bottom. And then what comes out of that, I'll go through his filter, so it'll be extra super clean. I do that so that his filter will last longer because I'm cheap. When I can't transfer fuel anymore, then I know that his filter is plugged up. So probably part of that same install will be a bypass valve so I can still transfer fuel because that's important. Then just to finish out the whole model, that mechanism of manifolds has a setting where the fuel, instead of going through these filters, goes through the engine. And of course, that allows the engine to run. I guess the thing to do now is wait until tomorrow. So I'll probably have a different shirt on, but this video will continue. Well, I'm back. It's been a few days. Here are the 2 containers. I weighed the gasoline out to start with, but these lids did not hold very well. So when I shook them, I lost some fuel. Mostly, strangely enough, from the one without alcohol. From the one without alcohol, but I think that mostly had to do with the fact that just the lid wasn't as good. But we don't need that to prove our point. I did pick up some other things. It was very weird. The one without alcohol, there was basically 3 grams of water in the bottom, and I would shake, so I drove it up into the column. I took these outside to store them, by the way, and did all my shaking outside so I wouldn't have to smell it. This got almost all the water out. There's just a little tiny bit of water in the bottom, and I'm very sure that if I let these pads actually touch that water, they would absorb it very quickly, from what we saw here. If you got that sock thing and you had it in your dinghy tank, that's exactly what would be happening. You just couldn't keep it off the bottom. This one was interesting. This is the one with alcohol. This is regular pump gasoline. And, the weirdest thing was I shook it all up, and then within a few hours, there was more liquid in the bottom. So the water had pulled alcohol out of the gasoline into the liquid at the bottom. It's the only thing that could have happened. But kept shaking, gave it time, and since I put this together on Thursday, it's now Monday, there is no liquid at the bottom. I was going to use a syringe to draw off the stuff on the bottom and weigh it, but I think it's pointless because this one, it did what it's supposed to, it looks like, and this one would have had we let it touch the bottom, I'm sure. Here's the big test. These pads That's the seal, and the bad seal at that. That's why it leaks so much. These pads, and by the way, I put 2 of them in each after filming. I let them drain out like I did before. They weighed 5 grams when they were wet with gasoline. And let's see how much they've gained. 14 grams. So, they weighed 5 grams each before. That would be 10 grams. They've gained 4 grams. I only put 3 grams of water in there. So these have absorbed something beyond just the water. Either just, maybe it pulled in some of the alcohol. But I think most likely, I'd only dipped them before. And I think maybe that other gram could just be gasoline absorbed, deeper in. But that's a success. I mean, that's exactly the thing I hoped for in this test, that the pads would get heavier and the gas would get cleaner. Let's do a weight of these 2. These are the without alcohol. Again, let me drain it. Now that only weighs 10 grams. I didn't weigh the second pad I put in there. And there is a tiny bit of water, but, well, let's find out how much water there is. I could have lost water because this one leaked, a fair amount. I could have lost water out into the, with the gasoline that went away, in shaking it. Well, that's our answer. We gained very little weight in the pads because I have almost all the water back. It was in the bottom. I just got used to how much water apparently was in this one when the alcohol was in it, and I didn't realize. But they did almost nothing for the gasoline that had no alcohol. Okay, so I found when I drew the water out here, there was about 2.5 grams of water in the bottom that hadn't been absorbed. I'm really very certain that these pads, had I allowed them to touch the water, would have absorbed them, fast, because, So if it was your tank and you had gas without ethanol, and you had one of those tiger tail things just laying in the bottom of your tank in your dinghy. Of course, that dinghy's moving around all the time, so you got lots of agitation, and that water that's on the bottom would slosh into that tiger tail and just get absorbed real fast. So it would work better with pure gas, but that doesn't matter as long as it works with both. And this one with alcohol that held the water up in the column, there's nothing left, and we found all the weight. So I gotta say, this stuff works. That'll probably be the end of the video. I wish I had one of those tiger tail things for the video. He's gonna send me one. Quickly jumping ahead, he sent me some, so here they are. These are his camel tails. I've been calling them tiger tails, sorry. Makes sense, Steel Camel's the name of the company. I've got 2 here. One says Camel Tail 2, Camel Tail 1. I'm assuming this is the smaller one. Let's take a look at what it is. Oh, okay. So, it's a couple pouches with his magic potion that would fill up the pouch. There's a bit of weight to it. It would go to the bottom of the tank. Comes with this ring. I don't know if this will work for us or not. All you would do is put this into the tank. It'll find the bottom and it should absorb moisture that's either lying on the bottom of the tank or in the fuel if the alcohol is holding it. I think it would work great. It's obvious this 1 inch is the right size for these kind of 2-inch tubes. And let's see. If it looks like it would seal with this bit of cloth in the threads, you could do that, but you could always, like in this case, drill a little hole, put a little like metal loop there, and then just, clip that onto it because you want to be able to retrieve it easily. That's it. That's camel tail. I think your water woes might be over if you threw one of these in your tank on your dinghy. As far as the diesel, back to what I said before, I wouldn't use it on the engine's filtration because when it fills with water, you're not going to have an engine anymore until you do that. Maybe if you had a bypass, so you could flick the bypass valve, that's a good idea, and then restart the engine. But if you're like me and you have a fuel transfer, maybe I should do that. Hey, if you guys want to see me draw a schematic and give you a description of how I do my fuel on Temptress, it's a little unique. Built into Temptress for not a lot of money is a system that can clean the fuel before it goes to the engine when I move it from tank to tank. It lets me move fuel from any tank to any other tank. And since she's an old boat with small equipment space, I have small tanks all over the place. And also, the way I do this, you don't spend much money on filters at all. You can actually just run your filter safely for a very, very long time, literally years and years. And until it becomes a problem, you've got a safety switch that lets you just keep that engine running until it's convenient to switch the filter out. Give me a comment below if you like that, and I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the subscribe. I want to get that subscriber number up, and thumbs up doesn't cost you a thing. Bye from Clark on Temptress.